Good evening and welcome to Paranormal Science Lab Live. I'm Lisa.
I'm John.
And
It's raining.
It's raining and lightning.
Thunder, lightning. I'm scared.
He's going to be under the table. Meanwhile, we want to welcome Jason Stanton. Jason, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Jason is the paranormal rebel, and he's got a lot of experience and a brand new book out, Unrest in Peace. Jason, I want to start with what got you into the paranormal, which ties into your book. But what started your interest?
Well, I got a lot of interest.
Paranormal related.
Are they real? Are they real, Jason?
Oh, there's some real interest. Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll get on topic somewhat. Well, anyway. Back when
Don't make us sleep anything.
My virgin ears.
Go ahead, start.
Anyway, back when I was about 14 years old, my parents, we were living in a very small apartment, and well, anyway, we had to move out because it was just too small. There was me and my parents, and I have 4 other brothers and sisters. So I mean, it was a small apartment for 7 people. It was just way too much. So we moved out into this house, kind of in a remote low area. There's a lot of farmland around. Most of the places there were all farmers and so forth and so on. There was a cornfield right down the road that stretched miles and miles of the cornfield. Well, anyway, it was an old stone structure house, very rural. I didn't know at that time, how old it was, whatever the case is, but you can tell by looking at it, it wasn't a new house. Well, anyway, we moved in, and the place was literally a dump. We spent every bit of 2 weeks, 3 weeks just cleaning the place up. I don't know, whoever, had it before us, the owners of the building, must have just used it for storage or something. I have no idea. But anyway, so we moved in, and there was a cemetery across the street. And well, back then I used to hang out in cemeteries a lot anyway. I don't know, I guess it gave me just a sense of direction in a way, a little bit of hope and so forth and so on.
Right.
And I had no idea if there was a connection between the house or the cemetery. I couldn't tell you. I didn't know at that time. I mean, I found out years and years and years later, but at that time I didn't. Well, anyway, about 3 or 4 weeks after living in this house, weird things started to happen. And I kind of pulled it off, or whatever the case is. Back then I was a typical 14, 15-year-old. I was pretty much well stoned 80% of the time. I mean, I can't lie about it.
I've no idea what you're talking about, Jason, with my 16-year-old son standing here.
Who thankfully has had earbuds in.
Yeah, he had earbuds in, couldn't hear us. Sorry, carry on.
Well, anyway, but I mean, a lot of it, I did point out, I was like, man, that's some really good shit I just smoked. But, some of it was kind of odd because, like in the beginning of the book, I mean, some of the beginning occurrences that used to happen is a particular book that kept falling off one of the bookshelves. And, well, my parents set it up as a game room. I believe it was at one time it was probably the dining room, but, they put a game room in there. They had a pool table and some dartboards and so forth and so on. And there were some shelves that were built inside of the wall, and we had some books on it. And one of the books, the same book every time, just kept falling off the shelf. I'm like, man, what the fuck is going on in this house? And the occurrences started to build up more and more. I started to hear footsteps and small little voices here and there. And when you get to the end of the book, the finale of it, I can't go into too much detail or give anything away, but I wound up seeing a couple of apparitions. And that kind of made me realize that maybe it's just not the pot I'm smoking. Maybe it's something a little bit more. So that kind of got me intrigued on venturing off into more research.
And so would you say that's really what got you into investigating, is your experiences?
Or pot.
Or pot.
That and obviously the few little things that happened in the book, some of the EVPs and using the compass kind of stumbled across me accidentally. I didn't really plan on that or even research that. It just kind of happened accidentally, and I'm like, wow, what the hell? Right. I mean, a lot of those things is basically what kind of got me to get into the whole idea of investigating. I didn't even call it EVPs at that time. I called it, what did I call it? Recorded voice phenomena. That's what I call it.
Well, and give a perspective, that was, 20 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah, so, there wasn't no digital or anything back then. Everything was all analog, tapes and things like that. There was no CDs out. Well, no, CDs were out, but you couldn't record CDs or anything like that. It was just mainly, tapes. You had to record everything on tape. So, being I used to play guitar, well, I still do play guitar a lot. When you're 14, 15 years old and you're playing, you kind of think you're a rock star and try to record everything you do. So, that's kind of how I accidentally stumbled upon that.
Yeah, that's right. You were actually recording you playing when you first recorded an EVP. Is that right?
Yeah. That's pretty much well it.
If looking back at it now as a seasoned investigator, what's your perspective on what was going on in that house?
It still questions my my mind a little bit as far as what exactly it was. Personally, I just think it was a lot of the repressed energy that was still stuck there. It didn't have a way out. Later on, which you find out in my next book, which, well, you've read I'm sure you've read the introduction already, and it's in that. But, I found out later, many years after we left that house, that it used to be a halfway house. Well, not a halfway house, the county's poorhouse, which right. Pretty much, well, it's the same thing as a halfway house. They just take people who alcoholics or criminals or whatever the case is. They just throw them in there, and they say, all right, this is where you're going to live. You can't afford to survive, so that's where you're going to be. And a lot of the people in the cemetery that was across the street, they died in that house. They actually didn't have any family members to give them a proper burial or anything. They couldn't just leave them there. So they literally opened up that little plot of land for those people.
And well, and I know that most counties in the country had a poor farm like that, and from my area, several of those sites are very active. I think it just draws it in.
Yeah, it's a lot of mixed energy that was in there in general. You didn't just have psychotic people in here, and you didn't just have alcoholics or drug abusers or criminals. It was everything just mixed into one building. And I think that is what played the effect on what I was experiencing back then. Just a lot of that diverse type of energy. I'm sure there was some fight, stabbed and so forth and so on in that house. Can I guarantee it? No. But, with that much many, people that are troubled, I'm sure it's happened.
Well, I can imagine, and even if they weren't troubled, just the people who were there because they couldn't afford anything else, I'm sure there was a lot of emotion and depression going on.
Absolutely. And I think all that played a role of the imprint that was left there from, back then.
If you could go back now and conduct those first investigations, what would be your dream of? What would you take with you?
Right now, if I go back into that house, if the house is still around, I would definitely take my recorder. However, I do visit the cemetery so often, and if sometimes when I go there, it does appear like they know who I am. They call me by name sometimes. So I'm sure that I wouldn't need anything extensive to try to gather information. I think just a recorder, maybe a camera and a video camera or a video camera. I think that's all what I would need if I could go back into that house.
In light of that answer, what are your thoughts on all the new gadgets and toys that people are investigating with?
A lot of it's all the same thing, but in a different box. That's how that sounds. I mean, you've got, K2 meters, you've got EMF or the Mel meter, you have a tri-field meter, you have a digital EMF. It's all the same thing. It's an EMF meter, no matter which way you cut it. I mean, some of them are a bit more sensitive than others, but no matter what, it's still an EMF, bottom line. So, I mean, as far as the new gadgets come out, it's just a remake of something that's already been done. And, yeah, sure, people do get suckered into buying them, thinking, oh, man, it's the next best thing. But, you just bought an EMF meter, or you just bought this, or you bought that. The REM pod can be is a pretty unique piece of equipment. What else do we have out there now? We've got, the geophones, which have been around for a while.
What do you make about like the spirit boxes and things like that?
Well, the spirit box, I don't like them too much. I'm sorry, but they're extremely questionable. I know a lot of people sit down and they try to argue with me that, yeah, it's flicking through all these channels that, too quickly for anything to pop up. But yet whenever you do get a voice on them, it's just a quick little bleep. It's not, normally it's not a long sentence. If I can get, a good 10 to 12 second sentence out of it, then yeah, I consider it as a piece of evidence, but it doesn't work that way. Normally it's just a quick little beat and that's it. And then it's done and over with. So I always question it. What I would prefer to see, this would make it 100% authentic if you wanted to do it. And I might even do it. Who the hell knows? I might get a police scanner and just not program it at all. Keep it 100% unprogrammed, so that way it will not pick up any types of radio frequencies. It won't do it. It's not programmed. And just hit the scan on that and see what happens.
What about something like an Echo Box, like the Echo Box software?
I normally don't bring around softwares too much. That is pretty cool. It's an interesting little thing to have on your computer. But I normally don't get in too much with computer programs and so forth and so on. I'm more old school, I guess you can say. I keep one little EMF meter with me whenever I go out. And I have my dowsing rods. I've got, what else do I carry with me? My cameras. I've got a laser grid. And I think that's about all that I even bring with me whenever I go out. Sure, if I do events, when I do events, so forth and so on, I've got a lot more gadgets that I bring, but that's mainly because, I love to give, other people the opportunity to try different types of equipment.
We're kind of the same way. So
yeah, we
can't argue that.
No, and we tend to do the same thing at events. It's more about educating people and letting them have a good time, I think. But
we're pretty happy with just our cameras and like digital recorders and things like that. I mean, really, what else do you need? I mean, honestly, you got yourself and that. I mean, we get most of our evidence in audio anyway. So,
well, one of the biggest problems that I see a lot lately, especially now that all these new gadgets and so forth and so on are coming out, people tend to think the gadgets is what's finding these entities, and getting them to get it. The gadgets are only there to, help solidify a particular situation. And it's to help document. It's not to get the entities to talk to you at all. It's not to find ghosts. It's not the way it works. You got to use your own personal self to get the ghosts to come to you. That's what's the main thing. I mean, it's like meeting someone in a bar. You can't just flash around some kind of K2 meter and someone's going to be attracted to you. You got to get up and talk to them. You got to say, hey, we're cool people, and then show them the gadget.
You guys can't even see me right now. I'm acting up. Our camera's frozen.
Our camera's frozen?
Have you ever caught anything with the grid?
Laser grid? Yeah, I have gotten... I've only been using the laser grid for about a year. I've gotten one piece of evidence that, it's questionable. I won't say it's paranormal, but it's definitely questionable. I haven't found a reason for it yet, but that doesn't mean I can't keep trying. But yeah, it does appear to be some kind of figure standing in the laser grid, blocking part of it off. And I got it. I do have it on video somewhere. It's on my hard drive, on my external hard drive. But that's about the only thing that I've gotten out of it in the past year.
Yeah, I mean, we used them for a couple, 3 years and haven't had a lot of success.
it happens. I mean, you got to experiment with the different equipment and find out what's going to work best for you. Like I said, it's all about personality. So, I mean, your personality is going to determine what happens with each piece of equipment that, you decide to purchase.
I kind of want to go back when we started this line of questions. You said something that I think is really telling that most people don't look at, is I think that entities are attracted to our energy first and then the gadgets second.
Yeah, that's exactly basically what I was trying to saying earlier. It's whoever you are as a person, the energy that you let out, whether if you're friendly, hostile, or whatever the case is, whoever you are as a person, that's what's going to attract whatever it is to come to you. Like I mentioned, with the situation in the bar, the type of person that you are is going to determine whether or not, if anyone's going to want to talk with you. Bottom line. And then, you use the gadgets, you use, the K2 meters or the millimeters or whatever it is you prefer. It don't matter, to document that particular situation while it's happening. Don't use it to, try to find ghosts, because you're not going to find anything with it. It's not going to happen. They weren't designed for that. But yeah, whenever you go into an investigation, be yourself. Try to have some fun and lighten up a little bit. And I'm sure after a while, whatever's in that house or building or, cemetery, it don't matter. I can guarantee it, they will wind up coming out and wanting to talk to you. They want to, play with you. They'll play with your flashlight, so forth and so on to, get you whatever it is you need.
Based on that, what's your theory on provoking?
I'm not big on provoking. I don't provoke. I don't recommend provoking. You're crossing into boundary lines. Basically, provoking is you're pretty much starting a fight. And you're starting a fight with something you can't see. So, I mean, take it from there. Will I encourage people not to provoke? Hey, if that's your style, if that's what you want to do, have fun. However, when you get your ass kicked, don't call me up. Do not call me up, because I don't break for stupidity. I will touch a nerve every once in a while. What do I mean by touching a nerve? Prime example, if you were to go down South Carolina or down south, anywhere down south, and you're trying to conversate with some kind of entity, and you might mention, hey, do you know we have a black president? Yeah, that's touching a nerve a little bit. That's not enough to get them vicious. It's saying, dude, what the hell are you talking about? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but not provoking them personally, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean. No, I'm not starting to fight with it. I'm not, nothing like that. Don't do that. Don't demand anything. Don't go in there trying to force an entity to show itself, because it's not going to. And the bottom line, if you get your ass kicked, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't break for stupidity. I don't know. I hope everyone else feels the same way, but don't call me out.
That's our opinion.
Yeah, I don't like provoking at all. I think it's absolutely worthless. I agree with you 100%. I mean, you're going to get yourself in a situation. We're the same way. Don't call us. Sorry.
Especially dealing with a particular client, if it's a residential case, you're pissing this thing off, and then you're saying, all right, client, I'll see you in about a week after I give you my review. That's kind of messed up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Have a nice life.
Leaving a turd on their kitchen floor and saying, all right, bye. It's messed up.
Yeah.
I think it's a little more messed up than the turd on the kitchen floor, but that's a nice analogy.
We might have to borrow that one. I do like that. What do you think of how the paranormal field's being portrayed in the media?
In the media?
Yeah.
TV's starting to get better. I still don't like some of the shows, don't get me wrong. However, they have lightened up a little bit, and they are starting to be a bit more educational. So I do like that kind of change a little bit. However, when it comes to a lot of these stupid radio shows that are out there now, even the TV shows, so forth and so on, it's literally making us out to be like some kind of mockery. It's not all that great. Radio shows now, it's more basically the way it's become more now, I guess you could say, is how popular you can get in a short period of time. And that's all it's become, is just one big popularity test. Everybody wants to be famous. Everybody wants the glory. Everybody wants, so forth and so on. They want it all. And that isn't good. That isn't good.
what do you see as trends of what's coming in the field?
What's going to wind up happening, and it's going to piss me off even more than what's going on now, is scientists, the government, NASA, they're going to wind up proving the idea of entities before, people who have been researching for 30, 40 years. And that's really going to really take a fuse with me because, they're just starting to get into that genre of research of science. And, here we've been doing it for 30 years. We haven't even broken the surface yet.
You think that's just a matter of resources they have to throw at it, or approach, or what?
No, it's because they can all pretty much well get along with one another.
I think it's just they have money to throw at it.
Yeah, a little bit of, I think column A and column B, they're both a little bit. What do you make of the unity movement in the field?
It's a nice idea. It is. I love the idea. I do support it 100%. However, it's like Santa Claus. It's great when you're a kid, but in reality, it's still a fragment of your imagination. It's not going to happen. Everybody's too uptight and too in tune of trying to be the next big thing. And there's a lot of backstabbers in the community. There's a lot of people who are so quick to judge everything you do. And that's the problem. That's one of the biggest problems in what's going on. So, I mean, as far as unity, I love it. It's a great idea. There are some teams out there that, do support it, and, I can rely on them, and they can rely on me, so forth and so on. But I don't see it happening. Just like I said, it's like Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. It's a great idea, but it's still a figment of your imagination.
Yeah, what are you telling me? The Easter Bunny's not real?
No, it's not.
No, dude, I heard the Easter Bunny used to battle in my house when I was a kid.
He hangs out with Peter Cottontail, right?
Yeah. Well, they're cousins, distant.
Do you have a random applicable question?
No, pretty much my whole life is random.
Okay.
I have nothing applicable.
Nothing tonight applicable beyond that.
Not really. Well, I mean, really, the fact that the Easter Bunny used my bathroom is pretty terrible. I mean, I heard it. They made boing sounds. Like hopping. And I heard the bathroom go, flush, going away.
Oh boy.
And the beans you eat are actually little sweet turds.
I don't know. There was some jelly beans on the floor. I don't know what that was about.
You two on the same show are a little dangerous, I think.
Look at this face. I'm a complete angel.
So's Jason.
Yeah, I can tell. Somebody in the room wants to know where you got the hat at, Jason.
Which hat? I've got a lot of hats.
The one they're showing in the picture there. It's like
I got that hat at Walmart.
Walmart.
Someone's on
hat.
right now.
Yeah,
I've got like probably about 6 or 7 fedoras that I wear, and then I've got kind of like an old rustic archaeologist type of hat thing going on, and I've got a selection of baseball caps and things like that.
Do any in particular seem to help on investigations?
Say that again?
Do any of the hats seem to give you better results on the investigations? Like a trigger object?
I do wear them. I love wearing hats when I go on investigations. Not too much to be cool or anything like that, but good protection. When you're walking around a lot of times in dusty places, so forth and so on, insects do fall, bats do fly around, so a hat comes in handy. It comes in handy. As far as it helping out the investigation, it does not help out at all, but it does keep the bugs off my hair.
I don't have that problem.
He wears unicorn hats.
If I could find a unicorn hat, I'll wear it. I found one. I found one in an old building we went into.
I'm trying to find a Robin Hood hat. I want a Robin Hood hat. I'm going to start sporting that.
You see the Furby hat I had?
No.
You're missing out.
Oh boy. You too. Hey Jason, what's your favorite places to go hunt?
I personally, I like old farmhouses. It could be, again, going back to when I was a kid, but I seem to get a lot better activity and a lot diverse activities in an old farmhouse as opposed to, a lot of these big fancy places, like sanatoriums and prisons and jails and so forth and so on. I also think the reason also, too, being that, a lot of these old farmhouses, they were, built by the owner, and they took a lot of pride in all that, and the land, they love that house, so a lot of the energy is still going to be trapped in that house.
More connection. I can see that. Do you think it may also be that those places haven't been hunted as much as some of the bigger places?
It very much well could be. Sure, when you go into places like Penhurst or Rolling Hills Asylum or Eastern State or even, bed and breakfast, there's a lot of those. They're so overdone. A lot of people are there every weekend looking for them. They're doing whatever. I mean, I'm sure it's got to drain the energy that's in the house or in the building, I should say. So, I mean, the chances of getting activity in them isn't going to be as great as, let's say, something that hasn't had the opportunity to have any of the energy drained.
I've wondered that if sometimes they get bored with too many people coming, engaging them.
I'm sure they.
Jason?
I'm sure they do. I kind of look at it like any other kind of electrical current. If you turn on all your houses in it and then check the voltmeter onto the wiring, it's going to drop a little bit as opposed to when it's completely shut off. In the same token, if you turn on all the lights, there's a good chance that everything running off of that circuit isn't going to shine as bright as it would if you were to have one light on. So I mean, I kind of look at it like the same way. If it's in there and it's always trying to do something or constantly doing something, it's going to get worn out.
I wonder if that's true of all hauntings or just interactive ones, or if just energy gets drained, period, even residual.
I can see that all of it would get drained, I would think, in my opinion on it. I mean, it's just like us, like you're saying. I mean, if we get tired too, then I pull our energy.
Yeah.
We exert energy and we have to take a break and relax.
That's what we do.
And then we often find that's when they start kicking up again. Is when we're not paying attention.
Especially if there's some that are more talkative to us in our minds than they are externally. Sometimes we take breaks; it gets better. But I get tired too. So does Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
But
do you find that they seem to sense us and communicate on an unconscious or telepathic level?
I think it's more, in all honesty, it's going to be a more telepathic type of situation on how they do communicate with us. I think this is what I think is what happens. Again, it's just a theory. Basically, I mean, as a human, we all have electrical impulses within our body. Whenever you get hooked up to an EKG meter, that's what they're measuring, that electrical impulse going to certain situations in your brain, certain parts of your brain. And I think it's that electrical current that these entities are, tapping into, that's allowing us to see them or visualize them or hear them, so forth and so on.
Well, I do too. And what's the most interesting visual evidence you've come across?
I've got a full body shadow. It's not, I mean, you can't exactly make out facial features or anything like that, but it's literally just a solid dark mass. It's a shadow. And it looks like a nurse looking at a clipboard, whether if it's male or female, I couldn't tell you. But I do have that on my hard drive, which I'd be more than happy to share if I was home, but I'm not home. But once I do get home, I'll definitely send you over and have you look at it. But yeah, it was definitely full shadow in the exact shape of a human, but you couldn't make out any facial features or anything like that. It was just a dark mass.
Do you find it that shadow people are more common than apparitions?
I do tend to believe that they are more common. Shadows are typically seen throughout most of your investigations, most of our investigations. You know, you always wind up seeing them out of the corner of the eye or something like that. But I mean, you hardly ever hear a story about a full body apparition. It's mostly just a shadow or you know, light play off the corner of your eye or down a hallway or something like that.
I'm always curious. This comes up a lot with our guests. What do you think the difference between them are?
I don't think there's much of a difference. What I think is what's going on with the shadow is it wants to, you know, appear. It wants to, you know, become full-fledged apparition, but it just doesn't have enough kick. So it sucks the energy out in that particular area, leaving this, you know, dark, you know, shape.
Mm-hmm. I think I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Actually, probably the best answer we've had on that so far. Jason, what's the funnest place you've ever been to investigating?
The best place?
Yeah.
There's a farmhouse out in Jersey. A farmhouse. Apparently, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but there appears to be a portal in there, and entities are crossing in and out of it. Whether or not if it's true, I have no idea. But the reason why I come up with that kind of thing for that is whenever I go into this particular location, there's always something different there. It's you know, obviously I get, you know, there's two entities that I always find there all the time. There's a male and a female that seems to be crying all the time. The male's a bit grumpy, but you know, every other time I go in there, you know, I get those two, but there'll be one or two more different entities in there, and then they'll just keep trading spots on and off. I'll just want to get in something completely different. Why, I have no idea, but I think there's got to be something. Whether, you know, entities are passing through that particular area or that land, or there's a portal or something.
And I think there's just certain places that are portals or a way station that are just attracted to for whatever reason. And those are always going to be interesting. Do you have any events coming up that you want to plug?
Well, I have May 3rd. I have the St. Albans Sanatorium event. Those tickets are $65 a pop. There are some group rates going on as well. If you get 4 people to go, you'll get $5 off each ticket. So, and then there's you know, 10 people. If you get 10 people to go, you'll get $10 off a ticket. So, I mean, there are some fantastic group rates going on with that. Take advantage of it. Like I said, I mean, single ticket is $65. For a sanatorium, you're not going to find any sanatorium event that cheap. It's not going to happen. They're always, you know, anywhere from, you know, $100 to $300. So, I mean, that's fairly cheap. That's extremely cheap. If you get 10 people to go, that's $550. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I agree. If someone's interested, where would they go to check it out for tickets and information?
The tickets are available on Eventbrite, or you can, you know, contact me personally on Facebook. You just type in Jason Stanton, and, you know, I'll pop up eventually somewhere along the line. You can message me, and then I also have the Ghost Chat Radio fan page. You can go to that and like that, and I always try to do the best that I can to keep everybody up to date with what's going on, the events, and so forth and so on.
What, for those that may not be real familiar with that location, what kind of activity happens there?
At the farmhouse?
Well, no, at the sanitarium.
Oh, at the sanitarium?
Uh-huh.
One of the people that have investigated there, I guess they work for the owner or something like that. They're the owner's team, that whatever, I don't know. He got pushed over a railing. People have been smacked. They've been scratched. Objects have been, you know, blown across the room. They hear a lot of voices. They hear footsteps. There's a pervert down in the boiler room.
There's one right.
Really
I'm sitting next to him.
So that particular place has a lot of interesting activity that's going on. And personally, I can't wait to get down there because I've never been really pushed or scratched or anything like that. I've been shoved, I've been touched, but I've never been pushed, scratched, or physically harmed in any way. So I'm hoping to get down there and try to get that to happen to me.
A little masochistic. Wanting to be heard, huh?
I hear these stories. I want to experience it. I just want to experience it and see what it feels like, and hopefully I can get it documented if it does happen.
Well, that's ultimately the goal. So
where I usually get hurt because Lisa will pinch the back of my arm in a tour or an investigation.
It's usually because he deserves it.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying. That's the only time I've ever been hurt. Yeah, see?
Just then.
My fat roll.
I've tripped over things and blamed it on ghosts, but I've never really been pushed.
I haven't been touched. I mean, I've been touched and stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, nothing real violent or anything. I've just been touched. And
even in locations that we expected it to be pretty violent or at least physically active, it was all psychic. There was no physical. So
I do think part of that has to do with the approach you take and I do too.
I mean, we don't instigate, we don't provoke either. So they're less likely to lash out in those situations, I think, than somebody comes in cussing the screen, pissing the moan.
What do you make of the? So I see it as a trend right now of things being demonic or inhuman. What do you think about what's going on?
I don't personally. I'm not big on demons. I've said on my show many times, and I get a lot of crap over saying that because, like, oh man, I have proof of demons. No, you don't. No, you don't. You have no proof of demons. I haven't seen any proof of demons. I've heard and read situations that people being possessed and exorcised, but it doesn't prove it was a demon. It never does. If a demon can possess somebody, so can Jeffrey Dahmer. Bottom line. So, I mean, I'm not big on demons. I haven't seen any evidence to suggest it. I haven't seen any evidence to support the idea. Hopefully I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I'll be the first to tell you that, I could be wrong. And if I am, I am. It's no big deal. But I'm not big on demons.
Well, truthfully, we saw a video posted the other day that they had a growling. I mean, it was obviously a shadow and a growl, and somebody said it was a demon. And I'm like, I growl.
How do you know it?
I'm sorry?
How do you know it's a demon? That's
exactly. I mean, just because it growls. My cat growls. My cat is not a demon.
My stomach growled. My stomach growled about 2 hours ago. Does that mean my stomach has a demon in it?
Oh, now that's possible. I thoroughly believe that. I have a little demon that likes to eat a lot.
No, we do agree with you there, Jason. We really do. I think a lot of that has to do with the perception of the person and their own philosophical.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's definitely philosophical. That has to do with it.
But I really like your comparison with Jeffrey Dahmer because I think that there are certainly places that we've hunted where some very atrocious violence has occurred, that you have some very negative energy there, and that I don't think has anything to do with something beyond human spirits. And I'm not even sure what it would take to prove something would be inhuman. You have any thoughts on that?
Of something being inhuman?
Yeah.
I really have no thoughts on that. Is it possible? Again, I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough call to make.
I think there's been so many cases recently talking about demonic activity and or people exercising family members on their own, things like that. I think that may be a discussion that actually the field might want to take seriously, is how would you even define that? And I'm really not sure that there is anything that anyone, criteria that anyone could come up with that would say this is necessarily inhuman versus a very negative human spirit.
Well, I think the biggest question in order to try to even do that is what would the difference between a human spirit and a demon would be, and then that way you could maybe come up with different types of equipment or different types of experiments to try to rather solidify the fact that demons exist or not. That's the biggest thing. There's nothing. I mean, all we're relying on is a K2 blip, and some noises that people tend to hear, which I'm sorry, they're common noises. And that's one of the, another big common noise that people hear. They say, oh, I heard 3 knocks. It'd be a demon because it was 3. If anyone were to knock on anybody's freaking door anywhere, I can guarantee if you count it, it's 3. Every time. Bottom line, it's a common thing. You always knock on 3. You can't even pretend, tell a story about, knocking on someone's door and you make the sound effects of knocking without it being in 3. It doesn't happen. It's just a common thing.
Yeah, we just did that actually on the table.
3 knocks every time, I bet. And the same thing with scratch. Oh, I've gotten, 3 scratches on my back, so it's got to be demons. But if you look at your fingers, there's only 3 fingers that's really going to penetrate anything when you scratch somebody. It's just the way it is.
Oh, yeah, I think that's true, or certainly, coincidental. I understand why people have that belief with haunting the Trinity, but Jason, do you think that the level of paranormal activity is increasing overall?
Personally, I think it's been decreasing. I haven't been getting, in the course of the past year, I haven't been getting as many EVPs anymore. Photos, I really never got too many photos to begin with. I've only gotten, just a few questionable photos in the past, 15, 20 years. But personally, I think it's been decreasing.
Any idea?
And it might, a lot of these places are overdone.
Do you think that's just overall or just at places that have been hunted extensensively?
So, even when I get called in to do residential cases, they haven't been as active as they were, 4 or 5 years ago. Whether or not if it's true, I have no idea. I haven't been to every place out there, so I can't really, say, all right, that's fact. But just based on what I've been doing over the course of the past year, I think it's actually decreased.
I wonder if that has anything to do with the fact that people's spiritualities have changed and that they're feeding things like that less energy than they used to.
Well,
less
negative energy. Less. They're being more accepting of it.
Belief structures have definitely evolved in the past 5 years.
Oh yeah.
Again, I think it goes with TV and the everyday average researcher, investigator, and ghost hunter. I think it's evolving to fit that particular genre. Even from religious standpoints, the Catholic Church, Christian churches, all those other high-power profiled religions, they're changing. They've completely changed their belief structure as opposed to what it was 20 years ago.
Right.
On things that we found, on things that we're saying now, so forth and so on. We say, this is what entities are, and then, they were against it 20 years ago, and now all of a sudden they say, oh, it's been in the Bible the whole time. Dude, just 2 years ago you said it wasn't. What the hell?
That's true. And I'm also wondering if part of that is because people are reporting situations that are not as, I don't want to say less serious, but less active now than they would have, say, 10 or 20 years ago, because it is more accepted now to have a haunting.
From a religious standpoint, basically if you're going with religion, I think they're changing up their style now is because they're losing money. A lot of people are starting to look at them, especially now with researchers going on, ghost hunters, so forth and so on. These all used to be at one time, diehard Christians or Netflix or whatever the case may be, and now they're starting to research, and they're finding out, hey, dude, you're full of shit. You know, you're lying to us, and they're straying away from the church. They're not making any more money. They're like, damn, you know, we're lost, you know, $1 million a year.
Well,
So
and
I mean, they got to change to get their people back.
right.
I agree with that.
Well, I do think there's a lot to that. And I'm also wondering if perhaps people are more or quicker to call in an investigator than they would have been in years past, where, you know, more subtle activity and people call an investigator where they would have ignored it or waited till it was more intense before they called anyone in, say 20 years ago.
Well, it's definitely more accepted now, and you got to thank TV for that. As much as I don't like the television shows, so forth and so on, they did do good on that side of investigating, because yes, because of them, we are more accepted as a community. I mean, before the TV show, which is kind of funny, if you were to walk into, you know, a gas station and said, "Spirits are talking to me," they would have locked your ass up with, you know, real quick. But if you would have gone into that same gas station at the same time and said, "God is speaking to me," they would have said, "Bless you, bless you." I find that funny as hell, but yeah, now it's more accepted.
That's true.
Do you have any fear of attachment when you go into a place of anybody coming home with you?
I've had a couple of attachments. It can happen. It very well can happen. And a lot of people, they always look at attachments as bad things. Personally, I don't think it's a bad thing. I had a little girl follow me home once, and I had a drunken fool follow me home once. Both of them, you know, they weren't bad entities, but nonetheless, they were okay. But a lot of people, you know, they tend to look at, you know, attachments as something being negative or demonic or evil. Doesn't necessarily mean it's true, and a lot of people go in there with different types of, you know, protections and so forth and so on. And it's good to have, I guess, some kind of protection, whether or not, if it's protecting you, I highly doubt it. But as long as you have, you know, belief that you're capable of walking out okay, I mean, that kind of strengthens you mentally and psychologically. So, I mean, that's all what it takes, really. But, you know, it can happen in attachment.
So, in your case, the two that followed you home, what did they eventually leave, or what happened?
Oh yeah, they eventually got bored of me and left. Why, I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
They let you they come to my house.
You just weren't exciting enough, huh?
I'm usually watching Star Trek and playing with or with crystals, so really it's not that exciting in my house.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're cutting out on it.
Are you?
There you're back.
You're back now. Jason, why don't you give some information out where people can get a hold of you and where they can find your book?
Oh, absolutely. As I said before, you can find me on Facebook. Just type in Jason Stanton on the search browser. You know, feel free to ask questions. Feel free to, you know, whatever you want. It don't matter. I'm pretty open, and I'm a friendly dude, I guess you can say. There's also I have the Ghost Chat Radio fan page. You can definitely check that out. I always put something funny up, or any upcoming event I got going on, so forth and so on, is always put on there. I also am the host of Ghost Chat Radio, which is found on DTM Wicked Radio on Mondays and Tuesday nights. My book, Unrested Peace, that is found on Amazon. It's available for Kindle and paperback, and it's got some pretty awesome reviews so far, which I'm pretty, you know, honored to know that, because quite frankly, I didn't think anyone would care. But it is a pretty interesting book, and it was an emotional one to write, so I'm sure everyone would enjoy it.
Well, and I will say personally that if you read Jason's book, it's a very brutally honest account of going through a haunting at a young age and how you dealt with it. I think it took a lot of courage to write. We have a question in the chat room, Jason.
I just lost it. There it goes.
Are you
on paranormal? Are you registered on ParanormalSocieties.com?
Am I on ParanormalSocieties.com? I have no idea.
Well,
I'm on so many websites, I don't know who I am. I might be.
I don't know who you are either.
That was a question if you were on that directory. So,
but I think
I think we're at an end. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Jason?
I think I covered everything.
Okay, we urge everyone to check out Jason's book, check out his event coming up May 3rd at the St. Albans Sanitarium. Sounds like it'd be a real interesting event, and you can catch Jason on the radio, Ghost Chat Radio, and on Facebook. And Jason, we sure appreciate you coming on and hope to have you back.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
all right.
The book will probably be out in August, I'm hoping.
Okay.
All right, we want everybody to stay tuned for Selena Run's show, Closer to Death. And also, I want to plug Walk the Mist, my jewelry store.
Yes.
My jewelry stuff will be at the Pause for Pause this coming weekend at Sage Studios in Springfield, Missouri, so you can come see me there.
Or you can check John out on Etsy.com as well on Facebook.
So on Facebook.
And
so buy my stuff.
Yes, buy his jewelry. It's gorgeous.
I'm a poor paranormal investigator. Buy my stuff.
Yeah, his son is starving. So
yeah, he looks like he's starving. All right, we gotta go.
See you.
Thank you, Jason.
Good evening. Welcome to Paranormal Science Lab Live. I'm Lisa.
I'm John.
And
it's raining.
It's raining and lightning.
Thunder and lightning. I'm scared.
He's going to be under the table. Meanwhile, we want to welcome Jason Stanton. Jason, how you doing?
I'm good.
Jason is the paranormal rebel, and he's got a lot of experience and a brand new book out, Rest in Peace. Jason, I want to start with what got you into the paranormal, which ties into your book, but what started your interest?
Well, I got a lot of interest.
Paranormal related.
Are they real? Are they real, Jason?
Oh, there's some real interest. Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll get on topic somewhat. But you can tell by looking at it, it's wasn't a new house. Well, anyway, we moved in, and the place was literally a dump. We spent every bit of 2 weeks, 3 weeks just cleaning the place up. I don't know, whoever, had it before us, the owners of the building, must have just used it for storage or something. I have no idea. But anyway, so we moved in, and there was a cemetery across the street. And, well, back then I used to hang out in cemeteries a lot anyway. I don't know, I guess it gave me just a sense of direction in a way, a little bit of hope and so forth and so on.
Right.
And I had no idea if there was a connection between the house or the cemetery. I couldn't tell you. I didn't know at that time. I mean, I found out years and years and years later, but, at that time I didn't. Well, anyway, about, 3 or 4 weeks after living in this house, weird things started to happen. And I kind of pulled it off, or whatever the case is. Back then I was a typical 14, 15-year-old. I was pretty much well stoned 80% of the time. I mean, I can't lie about it.
I've no idea what you're talking about, Jason, with my 16-year-old son standing here.
Who thankfully has had earbuds in.
Yeah, he had earbuds in. Couldn't hear us. Sorry, carry on.
Well, anyway, but I mean, a lot of it, I did point out, I was like, man, that's some really good shit I just smoked. But, some of it was kind of odd because, like in the beginning of the book, I mean, some of the beginning occurrences that used to happen is a particular book that kept falling off one of the bookshelves. And, well, my parents set it up as a game room. I believe it was at one time it was probably the dining room, but, they put a game room in there. They had a pool table and some dartboards and so forth and so on. And there were some shelves that were built inside of the wall, and we had some books on it. And one of the books is well, anyway. Back when
Don't make us sleep anything.
My virgin ears.
Go ahead, sorry.
Anyway, back when I was about 14 years old, my parents, we were living in a very small apartment, and Well, anyway, we had to move out because it was just too small. There was, me and my parents, and, I have, 4 other brothers and sisters. So, I mean, it was a small apartment for 7 people. It was just way, way too much. So we moved out into this house, kind of in a remote, low area. A lot of farmland around. Most of the people's places there or houses there were all farmers and so forth and so on. There was a cornfield right down the road that stretched miles and miles of the cornfield. Well, anyway, it was an old stone structure house, very rural. I didn't know at that time, how old it was, whatever the case is. Same book every time just kept falling off the shelf. I'm like, man, what the fuck is going on in this house? And the occurrences started to build up more and more. I started to hear footsteps and, small little voices here and there. And, when you get to the end of the book, the finale of it, I can't go into too much detail or give anything away, but I wound up seeing a couple of apparitions. And, that kind of, made me realize that, maybe it's just not the pot I'm smoking. Maybe it's something a little bit more. So, that kind of got me intrigued on venturing off into more research.
And so would you say that's really what got you into investigating, is your experiences?
Or pot.
Or pot.
That and obviously the few little things that happened in the book, some of the EVPs